Hello, welcome to Healing Sessions with Maxie Njuguna. In this podcast, we have an opportunity to connect with you through candid conversations. We are going to have experts coming through to speak to us in matters of healing, matters of trauma, every aspect that we may be going through, and those deep places where we have been wounded, but taking the journey of healing together. Join us in every episode, and please also go ahead and subscribe, like, share, and distribute this content to someone who needs it as we walk through this journey of healing together. Healing Sessions with Maxie Njuguna. Hello, everybody. Well, it's such an honor for us to connect again through this podcast. Welcome to Healing Sessions with Maxie Njuguna. And I know you guys are wondering, okay, why do you need another podcast? Well, I promise you, didn't just wake up randomly. You know, nowadays, especially in this media boom, we are all trying to have our space in the digital world. But I want to assure you that this is something that has been birthed through a process, and serving as a pastor in the city, one that God has graced to be able to have different experiences with different people. And all those experiences putting together take us to a place where we need to have conversations in terms of how we can be able to heal, in terms of how we can be able to overcome the challenges that we go through. Because as we go through life, one of the amazing things that I've been so blessed to have in my life is to journey through different towns and cultures and nations. I have had a chance to go to the deepest parts of this country, for instance, going into the bush and meeting the young herders and young men who are living through the life of banditry, or going to Germany and speaking to a group of young people who are captured in the whole bars of the city but struggling with substance and drugs abuse. And all these aspects that come to battle us in our lives. I've been in times where sitting with a family that has just lost a loved one in a moment of pain and grief and trauma, and all these experiences of life get us to a place where we are able to share from the depths of what we have learned. I myself have also gone through a deep time of healing and restoration and being able to rise above the ashes of life. And this podcast is tailor-made for you and I to journey through this our months and years to come as we talk about the power of healing that we all need. So whether you're going through a traumatic experience, as it were, or you have gone through a rape case where you have been busted and molested by someone who needed to take care of you, or you have just lost a loved one and you are grieving and you're in a season of mourning, or you're in a state of depression and anxiety and you're wondering, what will amount to my life? Or you're in that deep state, or you're trying to figure out what life is all about, or your relationship just broke and you're trying to figure out what's the next step. All these aspects of our lives, we have an opportunity for us to walk together through the journey of healing. And so if you have found yourself in a difficult place of pain or in a traumatic experience, and you so desire to learn how to heal well, not just to heal, but how to heal well, and to be able to move forward through the power of community and through the power of conversations, then this is your place. And from this first episode and in the coming episodes, we shall be having guests that will be joining us to talk about the different aspects of healing, to talk about the power of being able to integrate all these realities that help us, whether it is creativity, whether it is sports, whether it is therapy, whether it is in community. We are going to have different guests and experts who are going to join us for these robust conversations. And I want to assure you that this will be real, it will be raw, oh my goodness, it will be candid. We are going to expand it as much as we can, because we must have these conversations through and through. So please gather your brothers, your sisters, send them this link, subscribe to this channel, because a wonderful journey has just begun. For this first episode, as we prepare to have guests coming up in the next episodes, I just thought maybe to start off by sharing some bits and pieces of my journey in healing and what I have learned as I walk through this journey of life. Some have been difficult, some I'm still trying to navigate and understand, but all through and through, I believe that we can be able to share and inspire one another as we go forward. So, as I mentioned, my name is Maxie Njuguna. Have come from a very neat, small family, brought up by a single mom, and have one sister. We have a gap between us about 10 years. Can you imagine 10 years? Sometimes I feel like it's 10 and a half or 11. Maybe I should go back and check the maths well. But that's just my immediate family. And growing up in that setup together with my grandparents. And now thanking God that after walking away from singlehood and loneliness and being alone, I now have a wonderful wife. She's the most beautiful woman you'll ever see in this world, set apart above 4.5 billion. I mean, let me stop. But if you know, you know. But really, that's my immediate family. And as I mentioned, growing up without a father figure has been one of the key aspects of my life, and trying to come to the realization of what it means now to become a man. And I actually met my dad for the first time when I was in class 7. And from the tender age, I actually thought there are some times where people will even confuse and say that my grandfather is actually my father, because that's the only father figure who was close to me. And I will tell them, no, but that's my grandfather. And they will say, no, but we can't see any other man in your life, so we are guessing that that's your father. Later on, they came to realize that that was not so. And so growing up in that setup and getting to meet him for the first time in class 7, and I remember the first meeting when I saw him. First of all, it's been 7 years from the time I got to class 1, and then you have another 7 years, so I'm about 13 years, 14 years, and right on, life now presents to you the opportunity to meet your father for the first time. And at that point, I went numb, because I didn't even know what to say at that point, because with all the questions in my mind, first of all, I'm wondering, how do I even get to know you now, because I've grown up in a system where you are not? What questions do you ask to understand what happened that created that separation? And in that place, I got to a time, before that, I had never really gotten to a time where every system within me, my mind and everything could shut, literally shut, but that is what happened. And I realized that it was my response and my reaction to something that you needed. And that is what happens to most of us when you've been yearning for something and that something is presented before you. We don't know how to operate in the thing that has now come, based on seeking for it and yearning for it after a long time. And it is easy to ask, but it is also very difficult to know how to receive. I think we do a good job in knowing how to ask and how to seek and how to accommodate people in our lives. We are yearning all the requests that we have. We are placing them before God and asking Him to present them to us. But when the opportunity comes to know how to receive, is a difficult thing. And we'll just live as strangers in the house. And through high school, until the time he passed on when I was in Form 3. And I remember that time, when I was in Form 3 at that point. Of course, it's a random morning, and the principal comes very early in the morning. And when we saw him, we knew that one of us we are in danger, because he was a very hard, serious, but excellent man who taught us every needed principle for a young man to receive. So he came, called me out, and told me that your dad has passed on and you just need to clear and go home. All through that period, for the 4-5 years that we were together, the numbness never died. The numbness and the stillness in trying to navigate how to engage him, because of the big gap that was left in my life before I met him, I struggled really to engage him. And so much of it was that he's close to me. Have you ever been with someone who is part of you but yet still feel that they are a stranger to you? You're close to them. Some of us are with family members. They're close to you. You bear their name. You have blood flowing within your veins. Their blood flowing within your veins, but you still feel they are strangers to you. And it is difficult to live as strangers in a house for 4 or 5 years, trying to navigate what that space is all about. So even at the place of loss and death, when he passed on, my grieving was really scattered, because one, you're grieving the fact that you never had a chance to have a robust fatherhood. Then you're grieving the fact that you didn't have enough time for this numbness to die off and open your heart to receive this love that has now come. But also trying to navigate the aspects of now going through life without that figure in my life. And now my sister is born. My mom is there in a whole place of desperation and pain. It was very difficult for her, because when they came back together, for her it was a moment of restoration. She saw the possibility of us moving forward together now as a neat family, but that is crushed over time. In one of the episodes, I will share the way by which he passed on, because that will be a very important episode, because there is also how people live and the details of how people live. I will go deeper in terms of showing you his struggle with alcoholism and how he accumulated debt and how all that affected his passing on. I pray that you will look out for that episode that will be coming up very soon. But I share this to remind us, and one of the things that I want you to focus on this first episode is that it is normal for what some of us are feeling, that I can see them, I can see him, or I can see her, but I still feel that I'm a stranger to them. There are some of us who are married and you've given your spouse your second name, but you still feel strangers with them because the numbness that comes. You see, when you stay for a long time without that thing and it is immediately thrashed upon your life, you will struggle over time to be able to harness it and receive it. And what I have learned through this journey is that we must be able to count our steps and cultivate ourselves to the place where we can be able to express the healing that comes from God. I have a couple of questions that I've considered, especially when I'm out with the young people, when I have a chance to travel around the world, and some of the questions that come, and I may not have had a chance to answer them, but through this episode 1, I just want to handle them and touching to some of the parts of my story. One of those pivotal moments is on the day once after we had cleared on the burial, everyone goes away. It's a full week of activity, so you're still trying to process your emotions. Everyone goes away and you're left with your family. And a week later, I remember we had a conversation with my mom and looking at each other's eyes deeply at a moment of hope and inspiration to go forward. And I remember that moment was so powerful because we said, we will make it. It was such a tender, soft moment that we had. It's one of those rare moments that I've had with her because those moments are also rare. They don't just happen randomly. But because of the shared pain, it gave me an opportunity to press into what she thought was a possibility and for her to press into what she felt was a possibility. And one of the connections that happened in that moment is that we will still be able to go on. At that point, we had nothing. I remember when we came to the city, we only had 3 bags. One for my mom, one for my sister, and one for myself, of course. But I was forced to carry the other bags. And when we came, definitely, it was a beginning of a new journey. When we moved from the village to come into the city, from a very critical conversation, and that's what I learned. I learned those 3 things. That once you're done with a time of mourning and grief, you must sit back to process it with the people who are in your life. Number 2, you must have an action that will propel you to another level of hope. And then number 3, you must seek for a new possibility. So for us, the conversation happened within us. The opening of our hearts for a new level of possibility was to move from the village. And that possibility was extended now when we settled in the city. We didn't know anyone, but we just knew that it was important for us to lock ourselves out of that environment and seek for a new place. Just the same way that Abraham had to leave the Ur of the Chaldeans and go to a land that God will show him. And that really was the journey that we took. So the pivotal moments, I see that as a pivotal moment because it triggered everything else that we did. The challenging part of the healing process in terms of loss is when part of the family members, some of them came up and they said that we were actually the people who were responsible for his death. Can you imagine that? And they actually took up that story and shared it even within their networks, within their communities. Till today, I cannot go back to the place where he was buried because of the chaos that was triggered by that story. They said that the reason why he has gone down into the ground is because we had something to do with it. And when I remember how all those activities and what triggered and led to his ultimate loss, and you see how far you are from it, but people say that you are part of it, that really was a challenging moment. And maybe one day I'll have a chance to go back to that place. But till now, I can't go because of the story that was spoken. And it becomes a danger point. You see, you're struggling to mourn, but you're still trying to take care of your life and trying to put yourself from danger because of those that propagate a story about your life. I'm trying my best every day to be in touch with my emotions, and much of my days are spent in critical moments of silence and to process emotions, because you're not just processing what you're going through now, but you also need to process what you've gone through. You're not just processing what you're going through now, but you also need to process what you have gone through, because your history will impact your present. And so the power of the moment to be silent, I call it the silent moment for an opportunity to process, must be critical going forward, so that you are able to be in touch with yourself and to ask deep questions, to have that deep moments of reflection where you dig deeper within your heart and ask, why do I behave this way? Why do I react in this specific way? And I realize that the reason why I react that way is because some of the unprocessed emotions in my life still stay with you. They never leave. Unprocessed moments will always stick with you. So how you deflate your soul so that you can have more strength too. And you realize that every day of your life, there is more added into your soul. So if you don't deflate from history to create space for that which is meaningful and needful for your time, you will not be able to amount to anything. So that's one of the lessons that I'm learning. The fact that you have the consciousness to heal and the fact that you have the willingness to heal is a step way forward, which is good for you. One of the reasons why people don't want to heal is because when they stay wounded, is their way of being able to attract sympathy from others. So I'm not going to heal because when I heal, it means I don't need you. So I better stay wounded and ensure that I'm wounded consistently, including wounding yourself, so that I can be able to attract attention and sympathy from others. Because healing, number 2, is a responsibility. There is an essence of responsibility that comes upon you when you really want to heal, and you must seek for it. And if you don't heal, you'll still seek for attention and sympathy, and it will come flooded. You see, this attention and sympathy is a lie because it is not authentic. Because people will also minimize how they respond to you because they know that you are wounded, so they will not give to you authentically. They will still come to you in peace and bits because they know that there are rare places that you have not been able to touch. So you're not going to engage in an authentic relationship with the people who are close to you because they know that this is your area of operation. Have you heard some people who said, don't tell him that because if you say that, he will not like it? Or if you say this and this, that guy will become so angry. So I've learned that healing is a responsibility and it enables me to have an authentic relationship with others. So when you're engaging with that person, I'm not showing up in your life because I don't know where to step in your heart, but I can actively give myself to a relationship or even to a conversation or even to an opportunity that is before us because I know that I'm dealing with someone who is going through healing, someone who is seeking to be whole. And then definitely this healing is a journey, and we will need to go for it every day and every week, every month, every year. One is community. There is a power of community, especially in these times that we are living on. Isolation is one of the dangers of our times. If I was to put the dangers that are affecting us as young people, I would put isolation as one of the top dangers that are flooded within someone's heart. And we must be able to get to a place where we surround ourselves with people who can echo compassion, who can remind us who we are. You see, one of the objectives of a community is to remind you who you are when you forget who you are. One of the objectives of being in a community is for people to remind you who you are when you forget who you are. Being wounded has a way of dismantling a self-conscious understanding of who you are. And so you need an external voice from a community to fill in that gap, to speak to you. Listen to me. People who are going to speak to you until you become what they are saying. So when they start speaking to you, you will feel that what they are saying is rare and is not really an expression or a true identity of who you are. But the more you keep listening to them, you now become with that voice because you are hearkening your heart to be able to receive tangibly from those words. An example is between a husband and a wife. When they get married, the husband may notice that the wife may be struggling with maybe some places of low self-esteem or areas where she's still trying to navigate her identity. But when the husband continues to speak life upon that lady and say that you are precious, there is an honorable spirit that is upon you. You carry every skill and every talent that is needful for your work. Now, what will happen in that case is that when the wife hears those words, sometimes she will even rebel and react against them because she's still trying to find it in her heart to believe those words. But it was not so in the beginning. But when pain came, it deflated and took away that self-identity, occupied that space, and how you are going to overtake and overthrow that pain in your heart is by receiving words that can be able to open you up to the true original state of your life. And the more she keeps receiving it gladly, the more she becomes one with her true identity. That's the power of community. A mother can speak to a son who looks depressed, a son who has no image, but it comes to a point where that son continues to hear the echoes of grace, and that son becomes what God made them to be. I'm grateful to God for the few men and women that have come alongside my life to keep speaking to me. And even now, as a young married man, there are still men who are still connecting to me and saying that you can still make it through. I sit with men who have been married for 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. And they say that as I have made it through the years, and I ask them, how are you able to make it through? And in that point, they give you tangible wisdom that will take you through the next season of your life. That's the power of community. So for this first episode, I hope that you have been encouraged to see that healing is a possibility. And we are going to take this journey together, you and I, and through the coming months, through the coming years, when we look back, we are going to see how far we've come and how far we have accessed these levels of healing. We shall see you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us. This was the Healing Sessions with Maxie Njuguna.